Yeah, your go-go dancing.
Did you like it?
Air guitar.
And air guitar, yes. Yeah,
who knows what you created with that Shiva dance?
Yes, good point. Well, I knocked out Bill's phones. We couldn't get the phone in or got, I don't know, worked up and horny, so he didn't want me calling anybody else. He wanted me off to himself. But the, what were we just saying? But look at this. Licio Gelli, Italian financier and cabal leader, dies at 96. You see, he, in 1945, was a go-between for the Nazis and the communists. See, this guy was part of the secret world government. You know, the part that overlaps all the teams, all the different gangs. And books were written on him, and one of the most interesting statements somebody wrote said, Licio Gelli is the closest we're going to find out of someone who is a linchpin between the lower oligarchs and the secret oligarchs that we know nothing about and we'll never know anything about. Licio Gelli is the last guy you'll get before you go into the unknown zone, which is Dobbstown, of course.
What about the Bob?
Who, me?
Yes.
That's right. Yes, what about me? Well, Licio Gelli, I can't say that I taught him everything he knew. He was 3 years older than me, but we were of the same generation, and he's dead and I'm not. So basically that's what my dance was. It was a fucking victory dance because Licio fucking dropped dead. It was a victory dance. And guess who told me this? Sue Bone told me. She's in Amsterdam or someplace. Sends me an email. Let's see if we can read what...
wow.
I mean, she's the one who told me that fucking McLuhan died.
Yeah.
She's the one who found Zappa in the fucking Halifax Mall. And now she's up there. It's like Sue sits around waiting for key moments when she will communicate key facts to Bob. Right? You know, like she's waiting in Europe, wandering around. So it says, headlined, it came in December 18th, and that was yesterday. Licio Gelli obit in the Telegraph. And she says, you may have seen it already, Bob. Licio Gelli obituary in the Telegraph. Reading a copy here in Amsterdam. So she sent me the article. So it's to her credit for seeing it and knowing its value, knowing it's important. So let's get back to this. I'll just read a bit of the article. Right? What do you think? Wouldn't that be nice to hear?
Yeah.
And let's remember, this is the shit that Frank was interested in. I talked to him about it, and he mentions it in Them or Us. So it says, so how is the New York Times going to write about a conspiracy theory fact or a conspiracy theory implication? Well, they call him cabal leader. So, Licio Gelli, a buccaneering Italian fancier and self-professed fascist who was implicated in terror crimes, scandals, and a secret society that, with him as its Grand Master, was accused of plotting a right-wing coup.
This is not a valid menu option.
Well, we know that. Died on Tuesday at his villa in Arezzo, Italy. He was 96. Now, what happened on Tuesday? We got some really good news on Tuesday. Very interesting that he goes in this important week. So fucking important, Ian had to show up and cancel the phones. You know. Bert, Ian was here today, Bert. He was emailing me privately about why he was making it difficult. Okay, so it says,
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Listen to this.
Ion's back.
It's like in the movies. Where is the treasure? The treasure is... and he dies. Bob. What?
You probably shouldn't have brought up Ion too hard.
Listen to this.
Ion came back, or was always there, and just shut him down.
Yeah, we have to sing, PBO kill the radio star. Ion. What are you trying to tell us with this contrast? What do we have to learn?
That's funny.
Okay, Bill?
Yeah.
Bill?
Yes.
Okay.
Get back.
I'm back. I'm very vulnerable. I had to email him. Bill, call me. I mean, I can't get him. As a matter of fact, I just want to see why I get knocked off, but I'm back, so it doesn't mean anything. But it didn't look good there for a minute. I'm just starting the bio, and they won't let me broadcast it. But
yes, you say, listen to this.
Yeah, good music, eh? That's good sound stuff. Oh, we can use that. Use that in a sample. Listen to this. Bob's cut off. I mean, Jesus Christ, I've still got his band on my phone. I'm calling the other phone, and it's not, I mean, other people can call in. I'm not allowed to call in. It's not connecting. Oh, well. Okay, but we're back. Did we finish the... Oh, okay. I got distracted, but we're going to go back to Lisa. We need to finish this article. Tremendous article by Joe Mancini. Okay, so we're at the point where what? They're calling, in the posters, they're the mothers, bigger letters than the phrase of invention. And then the mothers cut, who knows, someday they may get their original name back. The mothers cut Freakout in March 1966, squeeze in a month at The Swamp, a club in Hawaii, then a few gigs in San Francisco and back to L.A. The police start to clamp down on some of the joints on the Sunset Strip, and the mothers run into a dry spell. Frank says, we starved for a long time last year. That'd be 1966. In November, they cut Absolutely Free, the second album. They get an engagement at the Balloon Farm in New York City's East Village from Thanksgiving till New Year's. Things are looking up. A job in Montreal. Actually, I looked that up in my own itinerary. He played in Montreal for 2 weeks, and my friend Dommy Perry saw them there at it's called the New Purple or something, the New Purple Onion, the club. We went to it a year later. A job in Montreal, then back to the West Coast. By Easter, they're in New York City again at Greenwich Village's Garrick Theater. There they'll stay until September. Then the last paragraph, it says, Frank Zappa, mother, thinker, something of a success. Frank Zappa, mother, thinker, something of a success. He's a producer for MGM. He produces the mothers for them. So Frank is a producer category of his own band. He's a composer for Capitol Records. That's when he was doing Lumpy Gravy, early 67. He's created and conducted a ballet for them, Lumpy Gravy. He wants a puppeteer to do the choreography. Remember, he did puppetry as a kid. Frank Zappa, skeletal, long hawk nose, piercing eyes, unkempt, but up close, not really all that ugly. Has a purpose. Frank Zappa has a purpose. Quote, he says, today in the United States, there's a group of people, I know they got to be out there, who don't care whether they're hip, hep, swinging, or zorch. These people have the ability to motivate social change. We're here to assist and encourage them. I want to reach the vast minority. There it is. The vast minority.
The 1%ers, the vast minority.
That's right. Good point. He wants to reach the 1%ers. There it is. Pre-ionic.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad I read this. I'd never read this before. Today in the United States, there's a group of people, I know they got to be out there, who don't care whether they're hip, hep, swinging, or zorch. These people have the ability to motivate social change. We're here to assist and encourage them. I want to reach the vast minority. So I can read McLuhan, or Eric McLuhan, spelling out ionic statements about the power of the word. Then we can go over to Frank, and he's doing another part of ion. Isn't that incredible? We're piecing together the puzzle here.
And he also uses the word assist. He doesn't say to help, but to assist, like I am.
Yeah, good point. Yes, good, very good point. He's ionic. He's not. Matter of fact, once he said, a father said to him, my son is really into your music, loves your stuff. And Frank says, well, I hope it doesn't interfere with his world, his life. He actually wanted to influence people without getting in their way. So, yeah, we're here to assist and encourage them. Pretty fucking rational, comprehensive statement, right? Worthy of a artist manifesto. And then right after that, there's the magazine. It's a teen magazine. There's an ad for Hagstrom guitars, and they feature Frank, and he's holding a guitar, and he's sitting in a chair with the back of the chair in front of him, and he looks pretty sinister. And the title of the ad is "Folk Rock is a Drag." This is right when the Dylan and the Birds are a big deal in Los Angeles, and Frank's already trying to say, fuck the trends, fuck the fads. And Hagstrom agreed. Let's put this nice positive statement in our ad. Picture Frank saying, folk rock is a drag. Woo. And then a magazine called On the Scene presents a special issue called Freak Out. Freak Out USA. And it says, Freak Out USA is wild, fall 1967. And it has different bands like Mamas and the Papas, Twiggy, Jefferson Airplane, Loving Spoonful, the Supremes, Paul Revere and the Raiders, the Fugs, and Mamas and the Papas. And for the Mothers of Invention, it says, greasy, freaky, insane, the headlines. and they have this picture of Frank who looks like Rasputin. One of the insane Russian guy who influenced the Tsarist family. That's what Frank has pictures of himself looking absolutely nuts. Like psychotic, an early predictor of Charles Manson or something. But that's pretty neat. Now, there's another article. Says Frank Zappa, quote, "We don't have a society, we have a colony of animals." Colony of animals. And remember, one of the people in his list of people in Frico is called Animal Huxley. You sort of want to think about Aldous Huxley, but it's Animal Huxley. So this article says, it's not that long, but probably got some good quotes. Frank Zappa. I don't think I read this. Okay, Frank Zappa, the chap with the long stringy hair and the long stringy beard. Weird, offbeat, way out. Yeah, you bet he is. At least that's the way he looks italicized. That's the way he is being merchandised to the record-buying public. Now look, here's a teen magazine, and the teen writers do not tell people, we're marketing the monkeys to you. This has been planned by our executive producer. The articles on Frank, he's telling the kids that this has been planned. You're being framed, is what he's saying to the kids. That's the way he is being merchandised to the record-buying public, and that's his image. Kooky, like he's on a trip, freaking out, all the rest. Then the writer goes, whoa, there are surprises in store, readers, big, unexpected. Surprises. But he doesn't repeat the word surprises. I interviewed Frank Zappa recently. After being warned, it's like you're approaching the Godfather of the Mafia. You want to interview Frank? You may not come out of this alive. So it said, after being warned, I was told that he was, different, unusual, non-conforming. And he was, every bit of the way, from the hair and beard to the clothes he wore. Unconventional, to say the least. But appearances are deceiving, are italicized. Not that one could consider Frank Zappa normal in quotes. He isn't. And a good thing, that's true. And then here's the first quote from Frank. We don't endorse any drugs, he said calmly, sincerely, his tone matter-of-fact. Or artificial means that would do anything to change the consciousness of a single individual. So he's not endorsing any drugs or artificial means that would do anything to change the conscience of a single individual. Well, that means Frank would not endorse the RNA drops. There's a bit of a difference there, right? Unless he would at this late stage. Maybe if he was still alive, he would. He would have changed this. It's 50 years later. So the journalist pointed out, but your image is psychedelic. And Frank says, psychedelic is a very handy word. He retorted, a convenient label. It's not something we apply to ourselves, but an impression fostered by a group of greedy businessmen it's not something we apply to ourselves, but an impression fostered by a group of greedy businessmen willing to equate nonconformity with some LSD jargon and manner. The two don't, in themselves, go together. They can or they may not. They can go together or they may not. In our case, it's the latter. So remember we had one of those people, Carl Franzoni, one of the dancers. We read his article in the LA Free Press, saying that they were not into the conformity of LSD, the fad. So Frank's saying the same thing. Then the guy asked Frank, why do you think the use of LSD has increased so rapidly in our society? Frank replied, I do not believe we have a society. What we have is a colony of animals. I don't believe there are any human beings around. Wow! Look at that! In light of the robots in the play, Captain Beefheart versus the Grunt People in 1969, probably written around the time of this interview. Look at that. He's saying there's no human scale. I don't believe there are any human beings around. Now, what is really interesting is a science fiction book called Science Fiction by Theodore Sturgeon called More Than Human. And Frank said that was one of his favorite books. That's pretty interesting. And that's about psychic people. They have a little baby, another little weird guy, another weird guy. It's like it's 5 or 6 little weirdos that live off the fringe of society, and they all have these talents. But it's very cutely laid out. So more than human. So he's saying, I don't believe there are any human beings around. We merely fantasize that we have reached the human level of achievement. Now there's a new agey statement. We merely fantasize that we have reached the human level of achievement. The bomb, war, prejudice are, however, only products of subhumans. I am trying to use the weapons of a disoriented and unhappy society against itself. The mothers of invention are designed to come in the back door and kill you while you're sleeping. This is how calm, how naive the society was back there. You could say shit like this and nobody would arrest you. They just think you were joking. Nobody was that bad. The mothers of invention are designed to come in the back door and kill you while you're sleeping. Now, here's Frank being interviewed in a teen magazine. Well, what would a teenager think of this? Then he says, one of our main short-range objectives is to do away with the top 40 broadcasting format because it's basically wrong, unethical, and unmusical. See how he's trying to program a better kind of music? That's Roxy's thesis. And he goes, sure, we're satirists, and we're out to satirize everything. Most of the guys in this band feel that we're going to do something to help. So he says, we're not just satirists. Sure, we're satirists, and we are out to satirize everything. Most of the guys in this band feel that we're going to do something to help. Then it says, Frank's definition of freaking out further reinforced my suspicion that he might have a brain beneath all the hair. Quote, it's a process whereby an individual casts off outmoded and restricting standards of thinking, dress, and social etiquette in order to express creatively his relationship to his immediate environment and the social structure as a whole. Then the writer says, few groups are born with more planning. Few groups are born with more planning, though the excuse me. Few groups are born with more planning, though the mothers of invention certainly seem like a freaky spur-of-the-moment bunch. That's an important point. They look like they're making it up and winging it all the time. Frank, as an environment to himself, pretends he's totally planning it all. Hey? You like that?
Yeah.
Roxy. What do you think of that, Roxy? Minimax says, defining his audience. Minimax up at Toronto writes in, defining his audience. Yeah, what did you say, Bert?
It seems like it's a plan within the plan. He's just becoming an anti-environment to an anti-environment. It just, in this teen magazine. That was in 1966 or 67.
67. 67.
Wow.
Roxy's been muted, so she's unmuted now. She got knocked off. You see this, Roxy? He's a tetrad manager. He's highly controlled, highly effectually oriented, but at the same time ready for statistical improbabilities to be incorporated. So he's managing chance and order, doing both. And he can rely on the audience.
He said he doesn't believe there's any people. There is only people who are not.
Yes, the people who are not. Everybody else is subhuman. There are humans around, but we don't know who they are or what they are. Now, I wonder if he's saying all this after having met me and Carolyn. Could we have influenced him? Did we in 65, 66 have some kind of effect on him of what could be?
Infected his non-physical.
What did you say? We affected his non-physical? Yes.
Infected his non-physical.
Infected, yes. I like that. Few groups are born with more planning, though the mothers of invention certainly seem like a freaky spur-of-the-moment bunch. Now, Ralph Gleason, I think his name was, a major jazz and pop critic in the 50s and 60s, writing for Rolling Stone, but he dies around the late 60s, I think. Anyways, he sees the mothers up in San Francisco, and he says these are a bunch of ad-men, ex-ad-men trying to fool kids. Like, he totally saw the planned part and thought it was evil. He hated Frank. It's interesting how he saw them. What concert did he...
Frank was seeing the same thing McLuhan saw, that advertisement was the new magic. That you had to communicate, act to reach the audience with this type of slogans and this type of...
Well, he was showing that an ad, journalism is an ad, and he's showing the manipulation of it. He's discussing the medium that the kids are engaging, that articles are PR releases. And he spends his whole article talking about how he's organizing this as a PR brainwash thing. Very good.
Yes, it's an anti-marketing, anti-advertising.
Yeah, everything. Now look at this. I have not either. I might have read this 40 years ago, long forgotten, but I incorporated the ideas of my understanding of what Frank is. I mean, when I say Frank's a satellite conductor, these articles are what back me up, even though I said that 30 years later. So he says this: we were carefully hatched in the best tradition of American business. What an amazing statement. We all know that the major successful big corporations all started with an astrological reading or talking to some fucking medium. So was Frank talking to some medium? He says we were carefully hatched in the best tradition of American business. See, McLuhan says with the Sputnik, by the 60s, you've got a programmed global theater. Everybody's trying to run around and be free and do their own thing because they intuit that is a globally has to be programmed situation. Huge. Let's just take this. Where was that?
And that's in Civilization Phase 3.
Yes.
Frank says, do your thing. What is to do your thing? And he discusses what does do your thing means.
He says that put a motor in yourself and go do. So here is the last line, the last paragraph of Through the Vanishing Point, which is the last quote, pretty well the last section of Eric's long essay on formal cause. And it says, the artist, whereas the ordinary person seeks security by numbing his perception against the impact of new experience, the artist delights in this novelty and instinctively creates situations that are both reveal it and compensate for it. The artist studies the distortion of sensory life produced by new environmental programming. See, McLuhan would not have said environmental programming in the 50s, but he's saying it in the 60s after the satellite has created global theater. The artist studies the distortion of sensory light produced by new environmental programming and tends to create artistic situations that correct the sensory bias and derangement brought about by the new form. Sensory bias and derangement brought about by the new form. In social terms, the artist can be regarded as a navigator who gives adequate compass bearings in spite of magnetic deflection of the needle by the changing play of forces. So understood, the artist is not a peddler of new ideals or lofty experiences. He is rather the indispensable aid to action and reflection alike. Then Eric says this, sort of developing that. If the vortex of effects arrives first, then we can escape it, as Edgar Allan Poe suggests, only by formal structural study of its action. We can manipulate any environmental vortex by judicial design of counter-environments and by controlling and designing the mix of technologies we release in our environments. But such an ecology of media, of culture, necessitates extensive training in the arts, and widespread training of formal awareness has ever been at odds with the demands of practical necessity. Read that again. Widespread training of formal awareness has ever been at odds with the demands of, quote, practical necessity. Perhaps it is time for the roles of artist and bureaucrat/entrepreneur to reverse positions. Our new world of chaos and complexity is too volatile, too precarious, too important to be left in the hands of the merely practical administrator. And there you have it, why Ion showed up to Bob. Bob, the most impractical fucking idiot on the planet. But I do have the training, the widespread training of formal awareness. You get it? Isn't that nice? Nice closing statement by Eric?
Yes,
what
because you actually got what the oleophatic means.
I got what phatic means?
Oleophatic, the whole picture.
Yes, I did get that.
Because until now, everybody was contemplating only different aspects of what we call reality or what we think we are. But nobody had complete view. Yes, because we're still sort of understanding these things with the frequencies and then.
Okay, what you just said. Now, Frank, are you there, Bert?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Frank is being totally impractical here. He's sabotaging his own image. He's saying we're here to kill you. I mean, talk about being impractical. Okay, so it says, we were carefully hatched in the best tradition of American business, programmed to do a specific job. See, that's the scenario. That's Uncle Meat programmed Ruben the Jets' Mexican band, Pachuco Rock, to take over the population and bring back the 50s. Frank is saying that's what he's doing, but he's also saying that he is working for someone else. That guy who says, Laurel Canyon was a CIA conspiracy, Frank's admitting it. We were programmed to do a specific job. What'd you say?
Working for Bob.
Working for Bob. I'd show up every 6 months, talk to Frank. Gail would wonder, what the fuck is going on? What is that impractical guy doing with Frank? Okay. So look at this. This is beautiful. This is the Uncle Meat scenario. We were carefully hatched in the best tradition of American business, programmed to do a specific job, and we have been quite successful thus far. How is he successful? Anyways, he's just getting started. This is probably the fall of '67, and it says, we are aiming for the consumer group, people who have certain hang-ups that can be expressed and worked out in song. It doesn't matter if our music makes sense.
This reminds me of Ion when he says, we're not here to make you happy, we're not here to...
Exactly.
Yes.
This is the closest to... It's like, you got Thompson, Croker, McLuhan, and LaRouche, and Zappa, and Mae Brussels, they all are aspects of the elephant of Iondom, saying one aspect of it. Here he is. He is being ionic, and McLuhan's being ionic at another level. Look at this. It doesn't matter if our music makes sense. If people want a pile of rubbish, we're going to give just that to them. You gotta realize, this young baby boomer teenagers reading this shit, what do they think this guy is? He's definitely saying, we're not in it for the money. We're not in it. We don't even give a fuck. You're right. It's ionic. We're here to fuck you up. and the guy writing the article says, "Oh, this Frank, he's pretty smart, pretty clever." They detect the brilliance of Frank. These young journalists, you know what I mean? They say, "There's something funny going on here. This guy is so blatantly." Let's read that again. "We were carefully hatched in the best tradition of American business, programmed to do a specific job, and we have been quite successful thus far. We will give people rubbish if they want it." We are aiming, I guess that's him, the composer, talking about the rock pop world that he's forced to play in. "We are aiming for the consumer group, people who have certain hang-ups that can be expressed and worked out in song. It doesn't matter if our music makes sense. If people want a pile of rubbish, we're going to give just that to them." Well, today, in the second hour, people heard an hour of me trying to get the phones working. Avant-garde musical happening. Bob trying to get ions and stop fucking with the phones from the non-physical realm. It's fucking hilarious. Okay, so the journalist, after hearing that quote and typing it up, he says, "Honest, outspoken?" No question marks. He just says, "Honest, outspoken, yes, very." Then he quotes Frank again. Frank Zappa contends, quote, "Society," and I use that label loosely, "can't be healthy without art." Now he's talking like McLuhan. "America stifles art." Now, Frank is saying, he's not saying, like McLuhan said, the artist knows what's going on, the consequences of our time, the effects of new media, new knowledge. He doesn't mean anybody who's calling himself an artist or even being lauded as an artist. The artist McLuhan's talking about is McLuhan, who nobody understands. Well, Frank's doing the same thing. He's saying America stifles art. So America stifles a fucking psychopath who wants to give rubbish to people. Okay? Look at the contradictions. He's there. Society, and I use that label loosely, can't be healthy without art. America stifles art. Little is created unless it serves a commercialistic need, i.e. jingles for a Pepsi Cola announcement. Ours is a materialistic, mechanistic age. It's confused, topsy-turvy, and erratic. If current art seems to possess similar qualities, that's to be taken for granted. Art at its best always is projecting what is happening at the time it is made. So that is, McLuhan would criticize that a little bit. That's pop art. That's merging with the present. Frank is not, McLuhan is not for pop art merging with the present, and neither is Frank merging, but right there, a little bit old-fashioned, mechanistic age. No, it's not a mechanistic age. It's organically electric, but Frank and McLuhan can't agree on everything. But he's saying that art has to be topsy-turvy and erratic and fucked up, because that's what our world is. So then the guy, remember, the guy started off saying, I was warned. Then he says, not everybody would enjoy an interview with Frank Zappa. As I said before, he looks weird, offbeat, way out, and he is, in the sense that true nonconformity, daring, creative thinking, and pure frank honesty are rare, offbeat, and so on. And so on. Blah, blah, blah. He's becoming ironic in his own journalism. Then he says, not everybody would like Frank Zappa or the Mother's Invention. But you know something? I'm one cat who does. He likes Frank. Okay, you can't be healthy without art. McLuhan gets on there saying, new art is nutrition. America stifles art. Little is created unless it serves a commercialistic need, i.e. jingles for a Pepsi Cola announcement. Now here's where McLuhan says that advertisement is the only art form in the 20th century. That Frank may not understand. Or he might understand, but he certainly doesn't talk about it as if he understands it. He's against the commercial. He thinks art is something else. So this is the fine line of Frank being a little uneducated and non-sophisticated. But who gives a fuck? His art did it. His art knew what to do, whether Frank understood it or not. I mean, I'm being very technical here. You wouldn't say materialistic, mechanistic age unless you're a cliché human being or a subhuman. You have to know why McLuhan says it's not a mechanistic age. You have to know how electric media are new life, new organic being. Frank later, 20 years later, does say radio gives new life. So maybe Frank learned stuff over the next 10, 15 years, talking to me and a few other people. He changed slightly his statements about things. But what a great interview, eh? I mean, look, this is consistent with what we were doing a month ago, talking about Frank planning, miming being Uncle Meat, pretending to be programmed by Uncle Meat. I did not know that he actually said it here in this interview. We were carefully hatched in the best tradition of American business, programmed to do a specific job, and we have been quite successful thus far. What's your job, Frank? We provide a pile of rubbish. And art at its best always is projecting what is happening at the time it is made. And society can't be healthy without Frank's rubbish. Awesome. What a great thing. What is this? Here's an ad for Absolutely Free, the album, in a teen magazine. It says, absolutely free. Freedom from inhibitions, that is. Freedom of form and content. But you do have to lay out cash for the album. In brackets, your friendly record dealer. They don't want you to steal it. He's not going as far as Abby Hoffman, who a year later will put out a book called Steal This Book. In brackets, your friendly record dealer would take a dim view of any other approach. Close bracket. Then he says, for less than $5 bills, you get 13 underground oratorios. Imagine a kid reading this oratorio. What's that? Including Plastic People, Brown Shoes Don't Make It, and America Drinks. All the irreverent tradition of Freakout, the Mother's first album. So you're going to get the irreverent tradition of Freakout. You also get a double fold cover with the front and back opening upright to form a collage that's a trip in itself. You could, there he is using the language of marketing. You could even get the unexpurgated libretto, in brackets, per instructions inside the album, which can be mailed to you in a plain brown psychedelic wrapper. Contradiction in terms, right? Plain brown psychedelic wrapper. Don't be an underground cop-out. He says, don't be an underground cop-out. Update your scene with the mothers of invention. Look, update your sensibility. That's the role of the artist. He spells it out. This thing was programmed. I think Marshall McLuhan and I created Frank Zappa. I did make an army. This ad comes out right after we have that meeting in June 18th, 1967 at Stanley's in the East Village, where Frank met McLuhan for the first time. I probably did influence him, even though there's glimpses of it in the year before in his ads in the LA Weekly or LA Free Press.
But I suppose I would say there is also this type of physical influence that you're not aware of the effects of meeting this new technology called Bob and McLuhan and how it's going to affect you, how to create with your own non-physical.
Right. For most people, non-physical would be God. And is God ESP? Yes, non-physical. Bob creating through non-physical. No wonder I influenced every major event of the 20th century. Look, it has the cover of Absolutely Free. Yes,
if
go
the
ahead.
Non-physical is one for all.
Yes.
Maybe there's some, because of this vibrational frequency. The same. How does science say the vibrational
proximity,
similarity or proximity?
Vibrational proximity is the phrase Ion uses.
Yeah, that somehow what you want to create can be maybe, like McLuhan said, the artist is the antenna of the human race.
Yeah.
Maybe he can tune in into this non-physical that is going to bring the ionic.
Right.
And that somehow.
Just for the record, in case there's any nitpickers, Ezra Pound said the artist is the antenna of the race. McLuhan used it, but Pound gets the credit. So in this ad, he has the cover of the album the way he says it would be. It's opening upright to form a collage that's a trip in itself. So it has the mothers looming over the city, the town, the highway, Los Angeles, with all these little cartoon cars going beep, 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 beep. But here's what it says. Move your goods with patriotic sell. Buy America. So it's a flag, American flag. It says, buy America, move your goods with patriotic sell. Move your goods. That's a McLuhan phrase. Moving our goods. The Economist, an economist. There's a kid going, move your goods with patriotic sell. What's that mean? And then it has a picture of a dead tree, and it says, this tree is ugly and it wants to die. Now, he uses the word tree. That's Ethel. Ethel's a tree on the side of Billy the Mountain later. Then it says, you must buy this album. They're not trying to seduce you, subtly. They just say, either you buy this album, you're out of here. You're gone. You must buy this album. And he says, Top 40 radio will never, ever play it. Buy this album. Buy this, and this is buy this something right now or something. Then it has either buy a Fido belt, buy a Fido. Now, he has a dog named Fido later. It says, buy a Fido, fits swell. Crummy, Crumly, and buy some. Some company. Crummy, Crumly, and buy some. Another one says, buy this, buy. It has the word buy all over the place. And it has something called F.K. Dingy and Son. Makers of, and looks like something for bad teeth. Now, the bad teeth ends up on the Uncle Meat cover when Cal Schenkel does it. So this cover was designed by Frank himself, I understand. Anyways, nice little statements. And above all this buy advertising, so it's like a congested downtown L.A. scene with all these cars bumping and beeping into each other. Arching over the town is the phrase, the scream, absolutely free. That's it's like the opening of the big letters, absolutely free, and it's showing you a polluted concentration camp. And remember, Uncle Meat, 200 Motels, it takes place with a concentration camp, and in the little town known as Centerville. And the opening line of Gravity's Rainbow, and Thomas Pynchon has commented on Zappa. Screaming came across the sky, some kind of rocket, V-2 rocket. Something like the screaming, screamed across. The screaming came roaring across the sky. It was landing in London. It's like this, these words, screaming across the sky, absolutely free. Well, so it says, don't be an underground cop-out. Update your scene with the mother's invention. He understands that every 18 months there's a new fad. So he understands that every scene's going to become a fad, compromised by the pink conspiracy. And then you're going to have to change your sensibilities to get into the new hidden ground. So he actually says that. Update your scene with the mother's invention. Absolutely free. Absolutely bananas. That means insane. So he's pretending to be insane, yet he actually does look insane when you actually go see a concert. Well, this is probably the last time Frank was in pop culture, teen magazines. No, that's not true. They were in other better teen magazines. The other thing is the Fugs. I have a couple articles here on the Fugs. They were like the East Coast version of the Mothers, people thought. Yeah, it says, young taste in music is changing. The Fugs, together with the Mother's invention, are representative of this new concept. But that's just the power of art. When you're a powerful artist, you will be noticed. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why he was going counter to the. It seems that he was going counter to the pop culture because of the way the music was outlined, and he would say his stuff was rubbish, but it was really well orchestrated a layout of music from his traditional training. Right.
Yeah, he was trying to do perceptual training like real art. McLuhan's doing it on a very sophisticated level for the national security agencies and for intelligence agencies. Frank is doing it on the street level in youth culture. The same message.
Yes.
We're here to update your sensibilities. Now, here's what's interesting. I actually have in this binder the actual fucking map that you send away for. The actual freak-out hotspots. We got this huge fucking thing, man. It's a huge map of L.A. and right in the middle. This is what Frank put together. There's a couple of photographs. One photograph is cops beating up a kid. This is what a teenager would get if they sent away for this. It says, all I wanted was a pastrami, a sandwich. And the cop is saying, silence, fool, beat the shit out of him. And then it has it's pretty neat. It has, hey kids, want to set up a bus? Dial this number. And it's a card. It says the Los Angeles Police Department Detective Bureau, presented by, it gives a name and a number. Please keep this card for reference. It's actually a card. You're supposed to phone the cop department and bust your buddies. It says, hey kids, want to set up a bust? Dial this number. And the number is 624-5211. So there's the 22. Got the 22 right in there. 150 North Los Angeles Street, room 321, extension 2521. There's your 22. It says, designed by Frank Zappa, Mother Invention, 1966, at Freakout Productions. Then it says about this card, about, hey, kids, want to set up a bus, dial this number. It says it's a cop-out card carried by Finks for protection during a routine investigation. Ask for yours today. He's telling kids how to get cards so when you get busted, you say, oh, no, I'm working for you cops. I'm a Fink. It's a cop-out card carried by Finks for protection during a routine investigation. Pretty neat, eh? So, the picture of the kid being beat up by the cops seems to be a shot from a movie. So on the side it says, from a highly recommended film. So it's probably a local underground film. The film's called Blue Fascism. Blue Fascism. And then it has an area of West Hollywood. It says Ghetto Number 1 on Westmount Drive. Then in the center part, on Willoughby Avenue, Ghetto Number 2. Then up north by the Hollywood Freeway, it says Ghetto Number 3. And it does not say the famous Laurel Canyon part is a ghetto, but it gives all the street names, and he calls it a Laurel Canyon Freak Sanctuary. And then beneath it says, Mysterious Hallucinogenic Wasteland. Mysterious Hallucinogenic Wasteland. That's like Jim Morrison doing acid out in the desert at the beginning of Oliver Stone's movie on the Doors. You guys see that?
No.
Didn't see the Doors. Oliver Stone. Probably about 1990. Everybody's here. Now, what a wonderful map. I've not looked at this in 30 years. And it then has 69 points along the border describing all the different places and all kinds of interesting jokes and statements. Woo! You like that? That was a little avant-garde electronic concrete music. Let's see. Yeah. Look at this. Number 19. That's Bob's number. Gigi's. Some club called Gigi. G-E-E-G-E-E. Remember his first song was G by the Crows. Gigi's was a scene until it was mysteriously forced out of business. It is at this moment for rent. 8100 Sunset Boulevard next to Schwab's drugstore. across the street from Ah Fong's and Greenblatt's Deli. The Ash Grove, that was a well-known club. He says, number 20, the Ash Grove features ethnocentric folk music. And folk is spelled F-O-Q-U-E. Folk, F-O-L-Q-U-E. Musique, M-U-S-I-Q-U-E. But it's ethnocentric folk music. Then he writes, ... I remember when Bud and Travis used to work there, and Ed Pearl used to do ethno-political greasing for the newly founded cabaret at the Idlewild Folk Freak Sanctuary in 1958, before Hal Zeiger invented the hootenanny. Check it out at 8162 Melrose, phone 65327. So this is actually Frank describing his own memories of the L.A. world. He says, number 23, the Blue Grotto Coffee House used to be nice and quiet until it got busted in the middle of the night. Meet and talk with the survivors at 1010 North Fairfax. Meet and talk with the survivors of the bust. Woo. Then another one, number 25, site of a gigantic, well, you're supposed to look at, you look on the map and see where the numbers are. I forgot to do that. Number 25. Okay, there it is. At number 25, it's got a bomb exploding, little cartoon, bomb exploding, helicopters flying over, black helicopters, a tank, and some 1920s cannon and a guy. So it's a disaster scene. They got like a nuclear bomb, mushroom cloud coming out of number 25. So what's he call it? Number 25, site of a gigantic and festive bust, wherein much brutality and authoritarian BS was perpetrated, with the result that all parties involved served a lot of dead time, in brackets, time before trial, and got acquitted, in brackets, causing them great physical and mental discomfort and status loss. Loss of status. No, that happened to him. He got busted like that a year or two before, out in Cucamonga.
Yes.
Then he says, number 27, a club called the Brave New World is a very sort of late-teen freak spot. Visit 1644 North Cherokee near Magoo's on Hollywood Boulevard. Number 28, the Omnibus is a coffee house next door to the Wild Thing at 1835 Cahuenga. So, geez, he's listing, it's like a big ad for all of the scenes in L.A. He says, number 17, the Fifth Estate, another place, is one of those places that refuses to quit, even after a whole series of scenes with the Heat, bravely situated at 8226 Sunset Boulevard. And he gives a phone number. Pandora's Box, you hear that in the lyrics on Absolutely Free. Number 18, Pandora's Box is another teeny bop underground stronghold, a defiant little island at the top of the strip with a picket fence around it and cops and ingenue freakos and lots of atmosphere, but tiny. Try sitting at Frascati's across the street and watching the Heat surround the place while the kids scramble for cover. He's describing like Saigon. It's fucking Saigon. It's a war environment. You sit across the street and watch the kids scramble for cover. There's the teenager getting this, and he goes, watch the Heat surround. Heat, it means the police. Watch the Heat surround the place while the kids scramble for cover. Keen fun. So, what a wonderful map. Bob's going through his own dusty, what do you call it? I'm going through my attic.
It's like visiting a parallel world.
Yes, Bob in a parallel world discovers all this shit. I don't even know how I got this stuff. Well, I did visit Frank. Maybe he gave it to me. Let's see. Yeah, in the crowded concentration camp, busy LA scene, it says Rotary. That was a businessman's group. It says Rotary meets here. Then beneath it, John Birch Police Center. So the police center are John Birchers. Then there's a guy with an ad, and it says, "Do you want power?" Do you want power? And,
we want our power back.
Yes. And then it says TV. Go ahead.
Yes, we want our power back. That's ironic.
That's right. And it says TV Guide, which should be spelled Guide, is spelled Gyde. It says TV Guide, kills on contact. Woo. So, it's a wonderful thing. Now, are you laughing at my tones? Is that what you're laughing at?
Yes, I like when you go, woo, woo.
Woo, that was heavy. That was fucking scary. The document's hidden here in Bob's secret stash.
Woo.
Woo. Now,
there. Woo. There.
See, the one with musical ears, Bert, digs the sounds.
Yeah.
He's into the sounds. Roxy definitely believes that humor belongs in music.
Yeah,
all right.
She does.
Of course.
Okay, so now we must go back to the famous Frank Kofsky interview. We never finished that, where this guy, he's bringing up Bertolt Brecht. He's a jazz expert. He's a leftist, sophisticated guy, and he's trying to see how sophisticated Frank is. So we stopped halfway through a couple months ago. Let's see. Let's start with let's just start with this. What were you doing before you got the mothers together? He says, Zappa says, I had a recording studio, and prior to that, I was in advertising. Kofsky said, I heard you talking about UCLA. Did you go to college? Zappa says, no, I dropped out of junior college after one semester. So he's not saying that he actually went back and listened to this guy, unless this is the semester when he was listening to Carl Cohn. So it's hard to tell what that is. Kofsky says, so you're a self-educated man, but then everybody's a self-educated man. Zappa says, it's almost like college was invented by Madison Avenue so that after you've gone for a certain number of years and spent a certain amount of money on products which they're helping to sell to you, you'll get a piece of paper that says you're educated. So that's the truth. You go there for a number. You spend some money. It's a mall, an intellectual mall. You go there, spend money, buy products, then they'll give you paper saying that you're educated. So Kofsky, he likes that. He goes, that's definitely where
you get into debt, and then you're educated.
Right. That's even now. Even now, it's post-human. Back then, you didn't know it. They pretended to be a human, and it looked like there still were humans. Frank knew there were no humans. Now it's obvious there are no humans, and you're just forced to go into debt. It's literally an insect farm now.
Hey, you get paper, and there is no work.
Yes, the paper doesn't work anymore. So definitely Frank is at the end of analogical media, the analogical global theater. The Android meme is going to start coming in 69, 70, 71, and Frank has to adapt. Part of adapting is he breaks up the mothers in August 69. He breaks up the band. He knows that there's something different going on. I've got to make a different kind of art, and the Android meme starts to creep in, and he actually begins to show it with that movie with both Beefheart. Both sides of the fight are robots, are machines. So, Kofsky says that's definitely where it's at, talking about Frank's interpretation of the college. And all you have to do is teach in one to find that out. So I think Kofsky was a teacher. Nobody's interested in getting an education in college. They're simply interested in getting out. That might not be true at Harvard. There may be a few freaks around at the top schools who really want to learn something. But if you go out in the provinces like the University of Pittsburgh, forget it. That's where you went, didn't you, Bert? University of Pittsburgh?
No.
You went to the University of Baltimore or Maryland or what?
I went to a small school in Maryland, one of the sister schools in Maryland.
It was not an all-black school like Howard.
No.
Howard University, not like that.
No.
They let you mingle with the white kids.
Yes.
And that
I went to school in the 70s, Bob. It was integrated in the 70s.
It's a new world.
Late
the Android means trying to make itself look friendly. That's right. It said everybody's welcome to come on in. We don't care about your race. If you're all dead, you're all robots, but come on in. The water's fine. And so that, yes, you're 10 years later.
Yes.
And don't you forget, I was there working for you assholes. I was building the Black Caucus way back then. Okay?
Yes.
All right.
The Android meme was running really hard in the 70s.
Bob was just revving up the Android meme. But if you go out in the provinces like the University of Pittsburgh, that's probably where Kofsky fucking forget it. Then he says, I'm interested in how you would classify the mothers, assuming you were forced to classify them. In a musical sense, if you talk about a spectrum in music that extends from straight rock groups like the Jefferson Airplane and the other San Francisco groups on the one hand, to jazz groups like Archie Shepp's group or John Coltrane's group, so that's the spectrum. You know, the San Francisco hippie psychedelic scene over to extreme free jazz. Now, in these terms, how would you go about describing the mothers? So Frank Kofsky is a critic who's trying to figure out how to categorize the mothers. You know what I mean? As a critic, he's got to do that. He thinks he has to. So what's Frank going to say? Can you predict what he's going to say? No, you can't predict what he's going to say.
No.
All right. So it's a good question. How would you go about describing the mothers? And Frank says it's a collection of opposites. Tetrad managed it right there. He's not trying to be on one side or the other, man. Isn't that awesome? Look at this. It's a collection of opposites. Our music exists because we jam things that don't belong together. Our music exists because we jam things that don't belong together. In other words, we attempt to do the impossible. Remember that? See, there's always a fucking order that unfolds when you're here at Club 22. We see Frank talk about doing the impossible, and now it's spelled out here. Awesome, the way I go through my...
It's the first hour of Payday.
Yes, exactly. The first hour Payday with the chaotic... the collection of musical opposites. You're right. Jamming things together. No, that's his definition. It's anachrony. He said, I would try to put things together that didn't work. You know what I mean? And then they'd work. They'd sync up, and it would be strange synchronicity. He's saying that. Our music exists because we jam things that don't belong together. Or we jam things that don't belong together.
We were all entertained by your trying to fix things and nothing. Just silence.
That's right. Yes. If Frank was a super fixer, and I come on, I go, well, okay, we're going to have to do with the anti-environment Frank. So I have to have Bob come on, trying to figure out where's the, what is that phrase? The sound flower. Is that what it's called? I can't remember the name. Well, sound check, or what is it? Sound flower.
Sound flower.
The sunflower.
Yeah, sound flower. 2CH in brackets. That's my technical expertise. Move the ticker down to sound flower, Bob. And it still doesn't work.
And then I don't want you to play this music, the video Kill the Radio Star.
Yes.
We just listen to some fragments.
Bob turns it off halfway through because he can't hear it. He's using the wrong channel. He doesn't know it's broadcasting. Yes. I can just hear the engineers thinking I'm the most incompetent spastic airhead ever. Radio programmer. And yet, it is the best fucking radio you could ever experience. I just realized I'm a satire on Zappa because he was so efficient and skillful at the technical stuff.
Yeah,
but yes,
every time it's completely different. It's like you dance, and everybody's entertained by the Go-Go Boy, and then there's the chaos with the...
That's right. Bob wows everybody the first hour, second hour, everything's broken. And non-physical. He uses the car, right? It won't let me call my own radio station. They fucking cut me off. Ian writes to me. But I don't even know what his problem is.
Ian didn't like your dance, or why?
Yes, something pissed him off. Okay, I can't get on. You know, let's see. Oh, he sent me this awesome view of the gardens around Chambord Castle. And I said to him, you can't, this is earlier when I was talking to him, I said, I've never seen that picture. He said, yeah, you can't get that picture, Bob. He sent me a unique picture of the whole area around with the moat. But he sends what? Okay. I'm always doing business. He sends me a fucking tax avoidance article. While they're trying to entertain, I'm trying to dance, and he said, Bob, pay attention. We need to deal with there's a new trend. Companies are leaving the United States. They're doing what's called inversion. Inversion. Let's see what the headline is. It says tax avoidance, subtitled The Irish Inversion. And it says, U.S. companies are shifting their headquarters abroad to protect growing overseas cash piles. More piles of rubbish. Anyways, he sends me that while I'm trying to fucking get some work done, entertain the people. And then he sends this article with a beautiful picture. He's always playing opposites. He sends me great stuff, and then he sends me insulting stuff. So he writes to me after fucking up the whole show for the whole second hour, for like 40 minutes. He writes, great show. And he goes, what fun. He goes, what fun, P-H-U-N, ... Let's chat tomorrow. So I write back to him. What do I write back? I said, why did you call in? And they're pissed off. Why did you call in? And he says, to reconnect your disconnect. Play radio killed the radio star. That's his answer. Why'd you call in? To reconnect your disconnect. Play radio killed the radio. Play radio killed the radio star. He mistyped it. Should be video killed the radio star. So even I can make mistakes. Meanwhile,
he's just making that. What did he say?
He said to reconnect your disconnect. Yes, play radio killed the radio star, but he means video. Video killed the radio star. Unless he means play radio killed the radio star, maybe he actually means that.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's why I'm.
The radio killed the Bob star.
Yes, now here's the thing. Yeah, I may sound incompetent, but I'd like to see you fuckers get on here, run a show, entertain the people, and deal with the non-physical, which is a fucking pterodactyl that you don't know what it's going to do next. Could you keep cool during that? This is super engineering that we're witnessing here. And I can't go wrong. I play one song after another, and it's always perfect. No matter what I play, it works. So let's go back to Zappa. This is beautiful. It's a collection of opposites. Our music exists because we jam things that don't belong together. In other words, we attempt to do the impossible and demonstrate that it can be done.
That's also the definition of your DJ. Your DJ is jamming things that don't belong together. That's how you DJ. Yes.
That's how I do it. I'm such the proper air. Donfield said I was the one to carry on McLuhan's work. Well, now we can say Bob's the one to carry on Zappa's work. I'm fucking doing it under these new global concentration camp conditions. And did you see? Janet Yellen raised the fucking interest rates.
Yes.
Oh, man, Ian was saying this is, Ian loved it, but we don't know what Ian likes. It depends on which Ian you're talking to. But Ian said, man, Bob, they've been waiting like years for this, 9 years for this to happen. She finally did it, and we love her. So chaos is coming, apparently. You have to deal with a bit of that, right, Bert? I mean, you guys, your bosses, talk about this kind of stuff.
Yes. Yes.
What? Okay. What were you yelling, Roxy?
You say the chaos is going to start. The wind is going to start blowing, but we know from which side.
We already did that. We've been there, done that. We did that in 2011. This is the.
That's what Diane said on the Stairway to Heaven.
Yes, you're right. But that was October 2009. That's 6 years ago.
Yes, but it was for this moment.
All right. Okay. You're too smart for me. All right. Let's see. In other words, we attempt to do. This is ionic. We say, look, you don't have to eat, sleep. You're not going to die. All sounds impossible. In other words, we attempt to do the impossible and demonstrate that it can be done. Isn't that awesome? I don't think that's a unique art manifesto. I don't think anybody said it like that before. And he says, one aspect of what we do, most people have ignored until now. That means, I guess, until Frank Kosky showed up. They take for granted the fact that we go from one speed in one time signature to another speed in another time signature in a split second, without any hang-ups, without any planning in advance. Well, I think they do plan. He has hand signals, but I don't know if that's including that. He says, we change tempos and change songs with no forewarning most of the time. Like, maybe I'll only tell them we're going into 3 songs out of a set. He says, that's what all that jumping around is about. If I jump and hit the floor, that's the first beat of the next bar, and they have to figure out what the song is by 2 notes. Wow. So I guess he gives them a list of 3 songs. Like, maybe I'll only tell them we're going into 3 songs out of a set. So a set might be 10 songs. That's what all that jumping around is about. Is he talking about himself jumping around? I think he used to jump around, yes. I used to see him jumping around. So let's assume he's talking about himself. If I jump and hit the floor, that's the first beat of the next bar. And they have to figure out what the song is by 2 notes. We train to put the thing together that way. And, of course, we have other signals. Oh, okay, he admits there's some signals. And, of course, we have other signals which indicate certain sound events are supposed to take place, like that rumble and smash and speed up and noise. There's a tetrad. Rumble, smash, speed up, and noise. What an awesome statement. So how the hell does he do it? They have to have ESP. He's talking having ESP,
rehearsals.
for fuck's sake. What?
The intense rehearsals trains him to react to his hand signals. Wow.
But he's saying at first he's not telling them that he's got hand signals. Without any planning in advance. No, he's planned. He's learned hand signals. So what's he saying? He has to be a contradictory phenomenon just because he's working on ESP. And you read, I think, More Than Human. That story is a long time ago for me. I don't even know if I read it. I know Carolyn did, but she told me about it. But they might have had ESP, those people. So he was acting out the ESP for little groups of people.
They will do very complex things, like, for example, the percussionist will be in one tempo, and then the singer or the guy playing the keyboard will be in another completely different tempo. To do that is, like, very hard. Just to concentrate and keep that tempo without following the others.
Yeah, that's what's neat about that neat footage that you found. It's December 1970, and Frank is doing fast hand movements pointing at the band, and Carol and several people look at it and they go, look, everybody's just staring. All the musicians are just staring at Frank. They're just staring, trying to keep up. You know what I mean? Staring at his hands.
Mm.
I've never seen that footage before, and it's so close. It shows you exactly what it was like to be in the band and staring and paying. You had to pay attention. And, like, they're not standing there jumping around being cool. They're all tense body language while trying to stay afloat.
Yes, and there are moments where they have to be quiet, but they have to do something. They have to move. They have to.
Yeah, no dead air allowed. That's wow. So he does that spew on Kofsky. Now, Kofsky, he can't be prepared for that. So Kofsky says, see, he had a weak response. He goes, one thing I've noticed about the Mothers is that they're very definitely an improvisational band. No, they're well-disciplined as well as improvisational. Then he says, they play solos, and they seem very heavily jazz-influenced, especially your saxophonist, Bunk Gardner. So you see how it's a weak response? He can't really hear what Frank is saying. He's not asking, like saying, wait a minute, You say you don't do any planning, but then they learn these hand signals. That's what he should have asked them. But he just makes a general thing. You guys seem to be jazz influenced. You seem to be improvisational. Well, they're not improvisational. That's included, but it includes heavy responding to a programmed environment by Frank. If anybody's improvising, it's Frank's improvising what he's going to do, right, within the discipline.
Yeah. It goes back to the rehearsals, the well-trained machine, the band.
He says he has these signs for sound events like rumble, smash, speed up, and noise.
Yeah.
These moments where they could be free and do whatever they could, or the highest note they could produce, or the lowest, or these waves they have to make, these effects. And they have to be creative, and they have the freedom to make a proposition. But it was only in that space where he allowed this participation, this conversation. But
only in that space, only in that planned part of the program, you mean? Yes.
Yes, I mean,
they could only improvise what he told them to.
Every day. They would play the song every time different. There was never a perfect repetition of something. They would change every day.
Now, Zappa called himself a journalist, and he is showing how the White House ran reality, how the CIA, they had to, 24/7, they're on the spot, information coming in all over the world. They had to act like this. He's showing how management on the deepest levels was operating. Like he said, this is the way society is. Music reflects society. He was showing tetrad management, bordering on pentad management, which is the Android mean taking over. And this is great commentary. I defy anybody who's written on Zappa to be not impressed. And if you're not impressed, it's because you're stupid. All right, you don't know what we're talking about. But we're talking about Frank in a whole new revelatory way. We're revealing something here. You have to have been in the Secret Council 10 like I was to understand what Frank was showing. And he may not have totally understood, got completely articulated like McLuhan could, but he instinctively acted it out. He knew that's how you would make music to reflect the program global theater. He's heavily programming them, as well as allowing so-called spontaneous things to happen, and then every now and then total insane anarchy happen, because that's what it's like in the Secret Council of 10. That's what power. You want power? That's what it's like. When you, as McLuhan said, his writings were for people on the spot. Now you have that in quotes, on the spot. That's people in the programming intelligence agencies. And you see this in a lot of TV shows now. They show this. I don't know how long they've been doing it, but the last few years there's a lot of accurate. As much as you could show chemical bodies running a show, they can't show the robots running the show or the non-existent ion running the show. They can't show that. They did try to show it a bit in Fringe, but it's pretty hard to really express what's going on here at headquarters, right? This is so. Frank says. Frank Costi says, "You guys seem to be heavily jazz influenced." Frank says, "It's amazing to note that we had to force Bunk Gardner to play in that Coltrane vein. When we first had him in the band, he was playing straight out of 1955, Howard Ramsey's Light Love All-Stars. So Bunk, this very talented, saxophonist, was a mainstream kind of performer. He was not he didn't know about the free range stuff, free range meat that Frank was creating. They had to force him to play in the Coltrane-esque vein. So Koski is surprised. He goes, "Oh, really? Well, now it sounds to me like vintage 1962 John Coltrane, especially Bunk's work on the soprano. And also I hear some of the new music on the tenor and alto. You listen to that then, I take it. Besides Cecil Taylor, you listen to Coltrane too?" And Zappa says, Well, I don't own any Coltrane, except that he's one artist on the anthology album that Tom Wilson produced in 1950. Tom Wilson is the guy who produced Frank and Dylan and Sun Ra and Cecil Taylor. I posted, did you see what I posted? Tom Wilson on the phone while Frank's standing in the studio while Tom Wilson is panicking that the mothers aren't what he thought they were? Did you see that photo on my Facebook page? I've never seen that photo. What a great photo. Yeah, it's a page dedicated to Tom Wilson. Somebody says, this guy should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He should be recognized, and I agree with him. He died early at 47 or so. And but he produced what a wide range of people: Dylan, Zappa, Cecil Taylor, Sun Ra, and everybody else in between, and Coltrane. So Zappa says, I don't own any Coltrane except that Coltrane's is one artist on the anthology album that Tom Wilson produced in 1950. That sounds how could he? Well, yeah, he'd be very young. Wait a minute, can't be 1950 because I think he was born in the 30s. We're just going to check that for a minute. Since this is the only thing people will be listening to in 50 years, the old cloud has been destroyed, and our cloud's the only one around, so we better get our facts ready, right? Do you agree?
Right.
Yes.
Right. He was born in 1931. That means he would have, did it say produce? Produced when he was 19 years old. I doubt it. I think he means 1960. Actually, we probably could look up the album. He died in 1978 at the age of 47. September 6, 1978, I was probably at a McLuhan talk to a bunch of psychologists on that day. I remember in September 78. That's when I followed McLuhan into the men's washroom, and he was pissing. And he had used the phrase tunnel vision. I was stalking him, and so he had used the phrase, left hemisphere specialist tunnel vision when in the lecture. So he's pissing in these men's piss urinals, and I yell out tunnel vision. He goes funnel vision. And funnels was a more accurate term for the urinal. So, I don't remember him. Bert, I have an image of McLuhan standing there staring at the wall, pissing. And it was probably the day, it probably killed Tom Wilson. It was so avant-garde what I did, he died on that day, September 6, 1978. Let's see, does it list the anthology in his discography? His first album is 1956, Sun Ra. I mean, that's pretty cool to hang out with Sun Ra in the 50s.
Oh.
So then, where's the anthology? No anthology listed. So it had to be 1960, I would say, right? Yes, we all agree.
Yes.
We agree.
To drink? Just a second.
Yes, go ahead. Maybe I'll go get something to drink. You whistle, Bert. Whistle while I go drink. Or sing, or start talking. Interpret us.
Okay.
Interpret us.
What you're laying out Frank on a different level. I heard something in Frank in an interview where he was talking about music videos and records. And like you said, he's not refined maybe as how McLuhan technically analyzed what was going on in the environments, but Frank definitely knew it. Because I saw an interview where Frank talked about videos versus music, and that the video was just an ad, a ripoff for the artist, because they had to foot the bill to pay the videos, but the video was just an ad for an album, and it really didn't. The videos saturated the market, meaning that the people were just ready for the next video, and they really didn't pay attention to the music, where Frank compared the video to a record, where a record you can listen to 100 times because it meant something to you in your heart. So what we're seeing with analyzing Frank is that, yes, he may not be able to elaborated as eloquently as McLuhan, but of course McLuhan was using it more of like poetically to describe what's going on. But Frank was actually feeling it and doing it and describing it in his own unique way.
Yeah, Marshall would observe. And he might get into a studio and observe things, but he wasn't on the road making music with the modern audience and dealing with PR and advertising. Frank figured it out by being forced to act like that, to deal with these media. New video comes out, he's got to make his albums with that in mind. And so he had a very sophisticated, we could call it efficient causality. McLuhan had the formal causality down about the effects on the audience in all kinds of metaphysical and cross-cultural ways, but Zappa was into making the efficient material and efficient causality, and so he would figure things out because he was always clear-eyed about what he was learning.
Yeah.
And about what was really going on. Yeah, video was just wallpaper. Or advertising, it's not music.
Yes. It's just an amazing parallel, having read and listened to McLuhan and then now to listen to Frank and the interviews. It's really interesting to see the parallels. I mean, they were both perceiving and actually actively engaged in that environment, that the Andrew Lee environment, but they had, at end result, different perspectives, because Frank was very, what did he say? He said he was a constitutional, so he still had sort of like that American, patriotic background, but he was still on point of analyze. Constitutional fundamentalist, but he was actually on what was manipulating. I saw another interview was interesting that he mentioned that the scientist said a long time ago that hydrogen is the largest element in the universe, but what he sees is stupidity. So why not describe stupidity? Right.
Right. Now, it was always fun to compare McLuhan and Zappa. I was involved with both of them. So Frank had the same purpose as McLuhan, enhancing awareness, not getting trapped in existence, and yet still having a fun time anyways and enjoying it. So he always was showing the political. Okay, so when he says he's a constitutional fundamentalist, it looked like he was putting on the pagan sensibilities, like the church fathers, the patriarch guys. They would, St. Paul and them, they go into the local village, learn their pagan tribal mythology, and then take that knowledge, that jargon, and adapt it to Christ's message. So they would put on the local knowledge. They were anthropologists, and Frank had said he was an anthropologist. He goes in, he gets on TV, he knows that he's saying wild things, but he can bring the opposite effect in by looking with straight hair, talking like he understands civic rules or civic bureaucracies and politics and the law. He's like he told those kids, watch out, this or that'll happen to you. Don't go too wild. It was always practical, and he knew that would create confusion. Because people are always trying to do it black and white on people, do this or that. So he knew to be practical, to say that he was a constitutional fundamentalist is part of his art statement of mixing opposites. Because he's a that video we were looking at, I don't think Roxy was here. Are you back, Roxy? I guess she's not back yet. That video of him talking about the history of America that we saw was done for this sort of right-wing or libertarian group, he's talking with a put-on voice all the way through it.
The vote now last week, the voting.
And it was almost ridiculously corny the way he was talking, but he was trying to put opposites together. I mean, this statement is really important, the collection of opposites. So he was not... He'd say he was a constitutional fundamentalist, but he knew it was irrelevant, because then he would say media is all there is. So he was putting on many levels, like saying, okay, this is this audience I'm going to target this time. And so he put on an image for them, emphasized certain contradictory things about what people would have thought. because they look at this constitutional fundamentalist, and then they go online and look at this manic guitar guy throwing toilet paper out at the audience. You know, toilet paper rolls, running around like a wild beast. You know, he's not staying stuck in one posture. He's quadrophenic, really is.
Yes, he's all over the scale, to get people to think or just to strike a chord within the audience, or even when he was in interviews. I saw some interviews where he was talking about the labeling of the music, and he was on. Yeah. The records, and I missed a lot of. I mean, it's good to go back and look at that, but he was really always counter, because they always had those right wing. You know, I forgot, there was a journalist that was supporting Tipper Gore, and Frank was very intelligent, but then he did put some, like, he would make a statement right in the middle just to break their flow, and then it was one with Ted Koppel, and Ted Koppel had to go back to Frank, because Frank made some very good points, but he also knew how to break the flow of the other person when they started to reveal their fundamentalist position. So he was a master with that, an environment. Master debater. Yes.
No, I said masturbate. That's close to, but I mean master debate. Yeah, masturbator. But you're saying that he would even critique a Tipper Gore. That would be, because Tipper Gore became a friend of Zappa and Gail later. But yes, back then she was right wing or whatever. So you would say he would trip his competition in the debate.
Yes, just a few little word interrupts, and then they would have to turn it back to him if he was making a point.
Yeah, he had the force of the momentary analogical proportionality effect of truth, or of heavier, more pleasant, eloquent vibe. See, that's what influences Ted Koppel. Someone says something that has a purer sound, and so you go over there. You know what I mean? And if someone else starts to hesitate, stumble, Ted Koppel goes somewhere else. Yes. They're always subliminally entertaining, keeping a poetry going of rhythm. And if you can wear that and can be on your toes, you can keep being the controller. You have the edge in the debate if you have the aesthetics of communication down. And you're saying that's what Frank had.
Yes. I mean, he's a master debater. I mean, you see it when he was in front of the Senate. I mean, all of the interviews are very fun to listen to, and you see that he's really on point, and that he is... I could see the general aspect that his musicians said that Frank was, because he was always poised. I mean, he's always poised. Always poised what he was going to talk about. You notice the way he sits there? He's sitting there, and he's not looking at the interviewer. He's sitting there with his head like Ion. When Ion was the hologram, he had this very attentive Mount Rushmore look. Frank sits there, all ears, listening to the vibes of what the interviewer or people are saying, and he's not looking at him. He's not trying to make eye contact, be friendly. He's totally on duty, perceptual duty, constantly. Yes. It's more than being on point. He's tuned in, and he's listening to it like it's a fucking composition that he's conducting. Yeah. And like Ion, once there's a slight, faulty, unknowing tone, he immediately comes in and corrects it or bounces off, you know? You'll notice he responds immediately to a timbre or a pitch that doesn't have any solidity behind it. Very fast. Yeah, I mean, there were some interviews where he was he intimidated the interviewer, because the interviewer asked a question. He said, "What do you mean by that?" Yeah, you know, right. There was this good one. Somebody, a smart guy, he was up and he went down to L.A. and this radio show. I don't know if I sent it out, and the guy, a caller called in and started sound like an Ionette, a wacky jargon, you know what I mean? And he talked about Saul on the ride to Damascus, and Frank immediately said,
I don't know what you're talking about. No, he didn't say that. He says, I don't know what those words mean. That's what he said. I don't know what. He didn't know the Bible story. He didn't know who Saul and Paul was, and the caller thought Frank would know this Bible story. He just, I don't know what those words mean. We're like an innocent statement. I don't know what your words mean. I don't know what those words mean. It was a different way of responding, not a cliche way. I never hear people say, I don't know what those words mean. They usually say, I don't understand you, or that's bullshit, or why don't you try to make sense, hold it together, come on. And Frank just said, he gave the guy a benefit of the doubt and said, I don't know what your words mean. So you have to tell me what you're referring to. He says it very fast. Hey, Roxy, are you back? Can we move forward?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. You heard Bert? You heard the good points Bert was making about Frank being on duty, listening with his head staring into space, or staring. He's not staring in space. He's just attentive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's fun to watch him.
Yeah, it is. It's really fun.
Like, he'll be there with Johnny Carson or any talk show, and he's just staring at the audience, and he's quickly answering things that are being said to him, and he's always evoking laughter in the audience, and he doesn't even care that the audience is laughing. He just stays on point. And I'm like that when I get interviewed. I'm really on point, man.
That's what I wanted to ask, because I saw there were some interviews that I saw him. I'm like, man, it's like Bob trained this guy. I mean, he just knew.
Yes, I trained him. Yes, and I'm on point. I don't agree exactly because that's point of view, but what you mean, that's what I do with Ion. I'm fucking on Ion's case immediately if he fucks up or doesn't say. He drops his comma, misappropriates his butt, or his and, or this, or it. I was doing it today with him, the recorded one I did today. Anyways, but I'm always doing that. But the thing is, when I was with Frank, I tend to listen. If I'm going to hang out with somebody, I will listen to them. I'll shut up. I'll enjoy their minds. I'm not on point when I'm just researching, being an anthropologist. You know what I mean? I appear dumb or nice. I'm a nice guy. I laugh at the right time or something. People like me. But then they get shocked if they get on when I'm doing a radio show and leading this thing and trying not to lead it, but get other people to take over. Then I become a little tight and tapered, not so fast and bulbous. I don't know what it is, but I could appear colder, less emotional. I might sound like I'm not listening. Yes, that's what it is. Whereas I'm listening when you're with me in person because I look attentive more than you're ready for. But Frank, when he's on the show, he's listening, very intently, good listener, but he's being proactive. He's pushing it forward, and he's correcting people. It's like he comes on to give the real news. I remember him blowing when Star Wars happened. The big argument in 83, 84 is about, do we really need this Star Wars structure? And Frank comes on, Johnny Carson, and Johnny Carson is treating him as a smart guy. Okay, well, let's find out what this smart guy says. So he brings up the Star Wars, and Frank said, that's a red herring, a misnomer, because the real developments are in biological warfare, down on the ground. And these Star Wars things that are supposedly going to protect us from missiles or runaway comets do not handle, people dropping poisons into reservoirs. Biochemical warfare. And I remember Johnny Carson or whoever it was just went, their mouth jawed, and they go, holy shit. Frank moved the debate to another level, which was more real. They're obviously developing biochemical weapons, and that Star Wars was a distraction from that work, from that research.
Yes, he was doing the Thingfish.
Yeah, Thingfish. That's right. Thingfish is about that. The chemical research in the prisons while everybody's worried about whether the Star Wars will work or not. But I never forget, Johnny Carson couldn't hide it. He was enlightened. He says, "Holy shit! I don't have to worry about this debate. That's the point. It's a big distraction from the real war, the biochemical war, bacteriological warfare." And so you would if you watch Frank's interviews, you'll see that, or you'll see people get embarrassed and lash out, and not even look embarrassed, just lash out at him. Okay, so let's move on here.
I saw a quote in which Zappa said, "Beware of the fish people; they are the true enemy."
Fish people?
Yeah.
Now, we've got to get a date on that. He might have been mad at Beefheart. That might have been a few years later when occasionally he and Beefheart would argue against each other or something, put each other down. So we've got to get a date on that quote. Because, Beefheart's wearing the face mask on Trout Mask Replica in 1969.
Around 1989.
Oh. 1989?
A speech to a pro-choice rally in L.A.
Oh, yes, I've seen that. And he said, we have to beware of the fish people.
No.
What?
They are the true enemy.
That's pretty interesting. We'll have to figure out what that is. I mean, does he mean the fish fresh out of the water? That's McLuhan's term.
Yes, well, McLuhan said the fish doesn't know anything about the water. They're inmates. Yeah. The fish people are the fish. They're unaware people. The people who are totally unaware of the environment.
You may be explaining how to read the cover of Trout Mask Replica, Beefheart's enigmatic picture. He has a trout mask. It's called Trout Mask Replica. He's got a trout mask, a fish face on over his face. So that means he's putting on being offering a product. He's being a pink, being a fish person, and it's like Frank and Don had that code, back in the 60s, late 50s, and then Frank brings it out in 1989. He quotes 1959 when he was into civil rights for the blacks. Like there's a timing there. He's quoting a jargon he and Beefheart had, 40 years before. That's neat. I've done that. I do that. I'll say something that someone I knew 25 years ago would know what I'm referring to. It would be a term of jargonistic improvisation that we would use. One of them is, that should tell you something, Dr. Beater. That's one of them. Because in the Beater interview in 1986, he came out of retirement and agreed to be interviewed by me. And he's talking about the gold deal, which then I got involved in. And he's talking about the impossibility of the gold world. And he says, that should tell you something, Mr. Dobbs, or whatever he calls me. That should tell you something. And so we would use that after that. If I get interviewed on Charlie Rose, you'll hear that. That should tell you something, Dr. Beater. That's what Frank was doing. He was quoting something from 35 years ago. It's compositional. These damn fish people. And, that's where Zappa instinctively was following along with McLuhan, because McLuhan's there writing to the fish fresh out of the water, the fish that doesn't know the new environment it's in, didn't even know the previous one, and then Frank picks up on the same word. That's part of the collective ESP. Yes. Once you get into the leading edge, everybody in the leading edge is picking up the same patterns.
Yes, and actually the story of Edgar Allan Poe about the maelstrom is about the three brothers want to go fishing because near the maelstrom there's a lot of fish, and then they get caught in the whirlpool.
In the whirlpool. That's the problem with Beefheart. He makes that song Lost Whirlpool about 1958, 59 in high school. Frank's got the recorder. It was probably right when McLuhan was talking about the descent into the maelstrom in the whirlpool, and they were young, tuned-in minds, and they picked up on it. It's a micro version of the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Maybe Andy Warhol was doing something about it, too, in an ad shop, in 1959. He was talking about whirlpools. Anyways, what was it? Ian said something. The dates were way off, ridiculous. And not about predicting, but I was saying dates. I was saying some dates they're trying to figure out, and he says, Bob, we don't do any fucking time. Okay? What are you saying?
You also said in the Stairway to Heaven, he was making fun of you because you say it's made in 1890.
Oh, yeah, 1890, that's right, yeah.
Instead of 1980.
Right. But I went on very forcefully. I was there trying to, it was like, how come Fringe, the TV show, has something that, how would it go? They had it in there before we did, our conversation. And then Ian goes, Bob, there's no time. It's way weirder than you imagine. He was trying to tell me how weird the interplay of events are. Like, they haven't landed on the moon yet, from some perspective. It's still 1967. Oh, yeah, he was saying that I've totally altered the last 50 years. Bob, when the true history comes out, or your history, it will be nothing like what anybody, they're not going to understand how it happened.
Listen, and this is the king in the bottle of the RNA. You see his profile. He's looking in all directions.
Right.
He can go.
His eyes are not normal.
Yes, but you can see like a profile on both sides of his head, like as if he was a three-face person.
Wow, that's like cubism.
See in all directions.
So some artist did that, and he accepted it. Picasso, one of Picasso's was Picassoing back in 1517.
Yes, but the point of view is a literate effect, and then now that we are after that, it's like we are starting to see these weird anomalies with time and then non-linear.
Right. Now, did we finish that point? Yes. So let me carry on here. So he says that Wilson produced an anthology in 1950, probably means 1960. Then he says the one that has Cecil Taylor and Sun Ra, it's called Jazz in Transition. It's a classic. Oh, we can actually Google that. See, I hadn't gone that far in reading, so let's just see the date. That's the thing about Goggle. They have everything, almost as much as Ion has. I had an interesting discussion with Znor yesterday. Good discussion with Znor.
Really? Oh, that's good. Are you going to publish it? Going to release it?
Well, we've done two. We've done two, and for some reason we overlap. It's because we're on Skype or something, and the recording doesn't work. He's recording it, and it overlaps, so it sounds like we're interrupting each other. But I told him to send it. I'll click on it later. We'll fucking try it out. I haven't listened to him. We'll try it. We'll see how bad it is. So, Jazz in Transition is 1956.
That's part of the non-time synchronicity.
Right.
Things overlapping.
Yeah. Okay. It says 1956. Yeah, it's a good point. Maybe it's a glitch that happens between us, between me and him. Jazz in Transition. Yeah, 1956. So, you know, he was, what did I say, 1934, 40, no, 1931. Do you remember what Tom Wilson was? $1931. So he'd be 24, 25. 1956. Yeah, he's born in 1931. Well, you know, he's 25 years old in 1956. He could be 25, and he's hanging out with the avant-garde guys, Cecil Taylor and Sun Ra. Right, okay. We're back to this thing here. The one that has Cecil Taylor and Sun Ra is called Jazz in Transition. It's a classic. Klosky says, I thought I detected in your music a strong Coltrane overtone. Especially in the use of modes for extended improvisations. This is what puzzled me, though. Why do you keep the steady emphasis on 2 and 4, the steady backbeat? Zappa says, so the people can identify at least the rhythm. So there it is. He's got abstract rhythms, but he keeps the opposite heartbeat going. Right? Which the jazz guys wouldn't do. And so he says, so the people can identify at least the rhythm. Klosky, have you thought about playing dances at all? So he doesn't know that Frank got going with the Vito dancers. So he says, yes, they dance in a bizarre way. Los Angeles is the best place for us to play for dancing because the kids dance better there. They dance free. Here in town, meaning New York City, you get these pigs trying to do the boogaloo, and all that stuff to what we do. So they try to do it. The pigs try. Oh, that's it. He calls, Absolutely Free is called Pigs and Ponies. I think it is Pigs Redundant or something. So he's calling not policemen pigs. He's talking about crummy pink consumers. Here in town, you get these pigs trying to do the boogaloo and all that stuff to what we do. And their legs get all tangled up and they fall down. All right, so he's making people dance ridiculously. Then Klosky says, ever since I got the John Coltrane live at the Village Vanguard again, I've been dancing around the house to it, and there's not a fixed beat. From that, it occurred to me, people have said that one of the reasons jazz is losing an audience is because you can't dance to it. But that's nonsense. You can dance to it. But you can't just do the boogaloo to it. You can dance to any piece of music you hear. In fact, you can dance even if you don't hear music. To go back to that earlier question, I guess you see yourself as melding together all these things. Zappa says, yes, we want to try and put together a theater of a bizarre sort. The spoken word is differentiated from the sung word in its rhythmic sense, as in poetry. But even normal speech patterns are beautiful in themselves. Because the way people talk, it doesn't make a shit what they're saying. In fact, most of the time what they're saying is really ugly. But when you think about the rhythm, or the way certain gas station attendants might speak, what they're saying is useless. But if you just listen to it as a piece of music, ... I like to simulate things like that. There's your simulacra. And you've talked about that, Roxy, about him taking speech. So he's actually going a bit further in speech rhythms and putting it into music more than anybody else was doing. You guys still there?
Yes. It's a formal admission that Frank used speech.
What?
That's a formal admission that Frank used speech, and that's something that that's noticeable in the Civilization 3. How he mixed the different cliche speech patterns with the music, and how he mixed them and isolated.
Okay, but Civilization Phase 3 is made in the early 90s. It's a completion of Lumpy Gravy, which was made 6 months before, the same time as this interview or just before it. So Frank is discussing what he's going to be known to have done on Lumpy Gravy, which had the speech fragments that you enjoyed in Civilization Phase 3. He did it 25 years earlier. Is it 25? 67, 20, 87. Yeah, 25 years earlier. So he's describing people. This album should have come out around the time of this interview, but it got delayed because he was on another label. The first label got pissed off. So it got held up, didn't come out until 68. But he's already basically made it when he's doing this interview. So Kosky says, are you gone, Roxy? Are you there?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm here. Yes, it's very interesting how he will take things, as if there is no time. He just took again those recordings and continued.
Right. He says here's certain gas station attendants. In the 70s, he has a song called Wind Up Working in a Gas Station. I mean, I guess gas station attendants is what you know when you're in a car culture like L.A. They're like your main social interaction. Because you're in your car all the time. Your only social life is gas station attendants. So Kosky says, you're very conscious of that, aren't you? For instance, I noticed when Jimmy Carl Black sings, quote, TV dinner by the pool, I'm so glad I finished school, in brackets, in brown shoes don't make it. He does it the way that guy would say it, says Kosky. I've heard that guy talk. You know, that Jimmy Carl Black's imitating some stereotype. I don't know what his name is, but that's a typical southern migrant to Los Angeles at the age of 7, now working in a defense plant. Southern guy goes to L.A. when he's 7, then maybe gets into high school, and then he ends up working in a defense plant. There's some Jungian symbol fixed in my brain that immediately clicked. Quote, I've heard that voice before. So it's a Jungian acoustic archetype. And Frank says, it's all around you. It rules the world. It rules California. Kosky says, I think it rules the world. Actually, it's cannon fodder like the rest of us. Then he mentions Arthur Lee's band, Love. Love, a group I'm not terribly impressed with as a whole. Well, that's a stupid statement. They made a great album, and which is still listed as one of the great albums. Love, a group I'm not terribly impressed with as a whole, also have a saxophonist, and they're trying to combine jazz improvisation with rock. Zappa says, actually what they're trying to do is to imitate our band, which is true. They were in the scene in 65 together. That would be Arthur Lee, Zappa, and Jim Morrison, and the Byrds would be the 4 main guys that Vito would dance to. So, and there might be a few other bands that didn't get as big, but they were all. Arthur Lee was a smart guy. He was a member of the Black Caucus, Bert, and he knew to pay attention to Frank. So Zappa says, okay, so Kosky says, I heard Love first. Is it just coincidental that their album was released first? Zappa says, well, because maybe that means they're on the same label. I'm not sure, though. Zappa says, well, let me tell you of a few interesting coincidences that I've noticed that lead me to suspect that we're making more of an impact on the industry than the people in the industry would like to admit. I was mailed a picture of Paul McCartney many months ago from a girl in Europe with my mustache and my tie, with my earphones, conducting an orchestra. So Paul McCartney dressed up like Zappa. And this is about the time I was preparing an album for Capitol, that would be Lumpy Gravy, where I was conducting an orchestra. So does he give the time? He said, I was mailed a picture many months ago. Yeah, because he was doing that conducting in February 67. You have to realize Frank, he just gets put in jail in March, April 65, goes to L.A. in the summer of 65, gets a recording contract by December 65. They get an album out in July 66, and then he's recording with an orchestra a few months later after being nowhere in Cucamonga. Obviously, CIA controlled. He's obviously a military operation organized by Fritz Kramer and Henry Kissinger. They wanted Frank out there to fuck people up. And Frank would admit it, and nobody would believe it. Just like me. I admitted what I was doing, and nobody would believe me. So he's saying, that's a good statement. we're making more of an impact on the industry than the people in the industry would like to admit. Yeah, nobody admitted that McLuhan was influencing everybody as much as McLuhan was. The intelligence agencies wouldn't admit it. They wouldn't admit it, Frank. They don't admit that we're fucking in charge. The New Age, Alan Steinfeld, David Wilcox, whoever those other guys are, George Norrie, they won't admit that we're the fucking cat's meow. Right? Of course you'd say right. How's that for timing? You see how I got in there real fast? Okay, he says, so he's saying Paul McCartney was imitating him. I've known that story for years. I forgot it was said here. I haven't read this fucking thing in 45 years. It's awesome. What I love about doing this, because I'm refreshing myself.